So I'm sorry, the the previous video got got cut because my memory run low. So to continue from before, MBTI often misconstrue SI as the function more related to memory, but this is utterly wrong. Both PE both PE functions or extroverted perception functions, they are related to these memories of the external world. The difference between SE and NE memories is that SE SE memories are are more detailed about about the things that they perceive with their sensory organs. While for NE, they have more blurry image because they constantly uh, connect between the their sensory organs with their with their previous memory associations. They're constantly trying to gauge what is happening on the background. And moving to introverted sensation. And this is why you everyone everyone gets confused when they read Jung's des- Jung's description of introverted sensation, because it is totally goes against what MBTI says about the introverted sensation. In in Jung's word, or in Jung's understanding, introverted sensation is more related to imaginations, because introverted sensors understanding of the world around them uh, is so mixed up, because their natural inclination is to go inward toward this towards these archetypal images, but they interpret those those archetypal images by using their sensory organs. What that means is they uh, they encode they decode the archetypal informations in the form of visual imageries, and and vis- audio imagery, etc. So so let's so to understand this, you need to understand that both PI, or introverted perceptive functions, they 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 exist they deal with the same world of internal internal archetypal images that we were born with. But the difference is the introverted sensor is more focused on the sensory aspects of those archetypes, while introverted intuitive, they're they're more directly concerned about the meaning of those archetypes itself. but but both of these functions are really connected to each other, so they will stumble upon each other, either coincidentally or or accidentally. So that's why when we read about introverted sensation, Jung said about it being very largely uh, dependent upon sense impressions, and introverted sensors introverted sensors sensation is very archaic, and even almost to the point of it being hallucina hallucinatory, almost to the point of it being schizophrenic even. I don't know the pronunciation, schizophrenic. So yeah, that's why I think MBTI misunderstood many of the qualities between intuition and sensation, and also between introversion and extraversion. They think that intuitive function is is about this is related to the archetypes, but it is not so. In extroverted attitude, intui- intuition actually goes through, it's actually being used to serve the objective understanding of objective reality. So I've been seeing the many uh, samples of introverted sensation in 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 city. And that's what I suppose this is why I also see that I think many of the SI supposedly SI dominance is seemingly displaying characteristics that were that were more traditionally associated with the extroverted intuition in traditional MBTI. But but this is understandable because because as we explored earlier, we know that extroverted intuition and introverted sensation are actually mixed, are actually being mixed up within the MBTI MBTI theoretical understanding. And also about the we also need to explore about the structure of the hierarchy of the consciousness of all these functions within within a human psyche. So the way Jung understand it, and I know I keep referring to Jung over and over again, but that's only because I think he he is he was onto something, and we haven't even understand what he meant. So first I want to I want to understand fully what Jung actually meant. Then we can explore the other possibilities of how these cognitive functions might actually get configured in reality. But first, we must understand what Jung meant with these functions when he created this this theoretical model. And and in how we understand this is by first understand what how Jung actually sees how Jung actually saw these cognitive functions being placed into the hierarchy of our consciousness. So we know he talked about the superior and inferior functions and also the auxiliary functions. The but more importantly, he always emphasized about the primary, not the primary, the only, even the only attitude of the consciousness versus the unconscious. So we have the attitude of the unconscious of the consciousness as being extroverted or introverted. And the primary function type of a person whatever it is always following the the primary, not the primary, the only attitude of the consciousness. So if we have this, if we have this an introverted thinker, for example, or introverted sensor, an introverted sensor will have a consciousness that is primarily or mostly introverted. And what this means is whatever other functions that are being brought up to the consciousness must follow the attitude of the consciousness. And I think he also understood all that when one function becomes conscious, the other functions, all the three other functions must be suppressed into the unconscious. Thus, they are following the attitude of the unconscious. So an SI dominant or an SI superior will have all other three functions within the extroverted attitude. So what does this mean? I Jung also explored about the concept of a function being differentiated or undifferentiated. So we need to understand understand all of these functions within that context. So most people have a primary function that is differentiated enough to be brought up upon the consciousness. And for example, introverted sensor will have introverted sensation brought up to the consciousness, and their consciousness attitude is introverted, so their unconscious would be extroverted. And the most inferior function that their unconscious have is extroverted intuition, because this extroverted intuition get appalled so much by introverted sensation. But in the middle, there is two other functions that are not so opposing to introverted sensation, but they're also still, but they still never can win the influence of a person's strong preference for introverted sensation. So they need they need to be lower than than the than the introverted sensation. And then what you have here is a function that that exists in the subconscious between the unconscious and the consciousness. So what we have is the unconscious being. So introverted sensation in an introverted sensation type is the function that is most differentiated. But you also have these two relatively conscious functions, but also relatively unconscious. And sometimes you will have thinking or feeling being brought up to the consciousness. And I think what how you how Jung sees this is that whenever a judging function being brought up into a perception type, in this case introverted sensation type, they must follow the attitude of of the consciousness. So so an SI type might have either introverted thinking or introverted feeling being brought up to their consciousness. So the state of the auxiliary functions, they're not as clear as the primary function. But even the primary function, this is this is not the it is not like a physical law that they have to be the most differentiated. Sometimes a person can also have no no discernible functions that are differentiated enough to be said as their superior functions. Sometimes a person is undifferentiated, and this might be genetic or might be environmental influences. I don't know about that, but but they're not differentiated enough, so their energy is split between between both both ends of a continuum. For example, thinking and feeling, or sensation and intuition. You can say that they are balanced, but But as the result of that balance, it also means that they have to compensate the power of both of each of these functions. So all the powers are diminished to no more than to almost around 50%. So I think that's how Jung Jung understood all of these functions. Not that it matters, by the way, because I have found out, I have tried to think how how these functions might play their role within the brain, within the human brain. It doesn't seem feasible the way that if we need to follow the way cognitive functions explain it. I think our brain, the human the human brain is is primarily concerned about perception and action. So all mental activities are actually the reminiscence of of the of the utility of perception and action, whether it be external or internal focus. So perhaps the way our brain works is whenever we are introverting, what and by introverting I mean just thinking in general. I in in our common understanding, not thinking in what Jung understands in the context of cognitive functions. Not that. What I mean is just internal mental processing in general. I think what we do when we are processing mental I don't know objects, I think what we are doing we are being triggered by certain sensory stimuli, and it triggers these, I don't know, these complexes, or I don't know if these complexes are directly related to our reward center in the brain. But this reward center, it is activating this this mental activity that is trying to create an expectation for how reality, or our how our perceptive functions should experience reality. So you have our brain areas that tries to that automatically experiences reality, and you have this brain area that is activated when our reward center thinks that we need to change how reality is being perceived. And what this expectation is doing is whether it changes our beliefs, or it can also change our motor behavior. And it does this through perhaps many many archetypes are being consulted when our brain is attempting to do this.